Okay, I'd like to call this Planning Commission meeting to order for Thursday, December 2nd. Would you like to call roll, Tim?
Sure. Commissioner Barnes?
Here.
Commissioner Lean?
Here.
Commissioner Peterson?
Here.
Commissioner Lewicki?
Here.
Commissioner Bowles?
Here.
Commissioner Sanders?
Here.
Assistant City Attorney Doug Thornley?
Here.
And Community Development Director Neil Cruz.
Here.
Thank you. And approval of the minutes from the September 30th, 2010 Planning Commission meeting has...
Move to approve as submitted.
Second.
Okay, any comments or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And I'll abstain because I wasn't present for that meeting. Okay. Announcements and committee reports? Seeing none, move on. Thank you. Any informational items? Okay. All right. On to public comment. For the public that's present, if you'd like to come down and speak about anything that's on or not on the agenda, you may do so for 3 minutes. Not seeing any movement, we'll move on. Thank you. PCN 09007 Stonefield Incorporated.
Good evening, Jim Rundle, Senior Planner here to present a detachment request from Stonefield Incorporated for 375 acres to be removed from the City of Sparks. Planning Commission may remember that in 2009, the Planning Commission reviewed a annexation request, a discontiguous annexation request to annex this parcel. The parcel is highlighted in blue, and it's in the East Truckee River Canyon. The area that is gray is currently the incorporated, what we know as the incorporated City of Sparks. The yellow areas, orange areas are what is in the City of Sparks' sphere of influence. In 2009, when the staff came to the Planning Commission, staff was recommending denial of the discontiguous annexation request. The Planning Commission upheld staff's recommendation and forwarded it to the Sparks City Council. The City Council overturned Sparks' the Planning Commission and Sparks staff's request because they felt that discontiguous annexation may be made illegal at the state legislature. Staff had outlined findings of approval so that the City Council could annex it if they so chose. The applicant understood that the annexation was not an approval to do any type of project, rather that it was a master planning effort would need to be done before any projects could be reviewed or could be approved in the East Truckee River Canyon. When a property is annexed into a city or into a municipality, there is a responsibility for the municipality to provide a certain level of service. Those services include public safety and typical public works types of services. Sewer, storm drain, paved roads, those signals like stoplights, street lights, all included in providing those types of services by a municipality. To provide those types of services, the city must receive a certain amount of revenue to be able to continue to provide those services. The East Truckee River Canyon is approximately 9,900 acres along Interstate 80, of which around 3,300 acres is developable. These pods of development make it very difficult to provide dense enough activity to offset the costs of minimum levels of service. Utilizing a minimum level of service, it was determined that there would be need for at least one police beat and a minimum of one fire station. Forecasting development potential is also tricky because it is difficult to determine what will actually develop. What staff did was utilize land uses and business plans from the applicant to do the master planning effort. Ultimately, staff has provided in your staff report build-out scenarios, one of them having higher floor area, or having a higher build-out potential, and one of them having a lower build-out potential. The higher build-out potential has higher floor area ratios. It is predicted that with one fire station and one police beat and basic public works infrastructure, the cost would be approximately $4.9 million per year, whereas development at the high end would only produce approximately $4.9 million per year. Interestingly, the development scenario that provides $4.9 million a year would actually require higher levels of service, approximately $11.3 million per year. Outlined in the staff report is the likelihood of development occurring at those potentials. The facts do not support development occurring at that rate and at that intensity. It is anticipated that it would, with a power plant, a combined cycle power plant, and data centers, that revenues would approximately be $2.5 million. This development potential is too low to provide the minimum levels of service. So to move forward with development in the East Truckee River Canyon may be too risky for the City of Sparks. Staff is supporting detachment of this property from the City of Sparks. We believe that the prudent action by the property owner is to request the detachment and to try to seek out development under Washoe County's jurisdiction. This is the second hearing for the detachment request. The City Council already considered moving forward with the request when they asked the city surveyor to file with the Annexation Commission an annexation map and with the city clerk. From the Sparks Planning Commission meeting, this item will go forward to the Regional Planning Commission, who will be acting as the Annexation Commission. While regional planning does not have jurisdiction for annexation matters, it interestingly enough does have jurisdiction for detachment matters. After the hearing at the Regional Planning Commission meeting, it will move forward to the Sparks City Council, where it will be heard as an ordinance and have the standard 2 readings. If the City Council ultimately concurs with what is now staff's recommendation, staff could come back in front of the Planning Commission to ask for or seek direction for the existing sphere of influence in the East Truckee River Canyon, as we talked about at a workshop a few months ago. And that concludes my staff report, and I'm here for questions. Excuse me, it concludes my presentation.
Okay. Any questions for Jim?
Hey, Jim, could you talk really briefly about why the study that was done here that has led to the detachment request wasn't done originally before the City Council went in a different direction?
There was a master planning effort done. I don't remember the year, quite some time ago. Some of the planning commissioners may remember it. It had a substantial amount of residential in the area plan proposed. As the market turned, many of the property owners informed staff that that was not the direction they wanted to move forward with that current plan. That current plan never came to the Planning Commission for formal approval. I believe it was only done in workshop format. Staff wanted to make sure that a fiscal analysis could be done on the East Truckee River Canyon, and that appropriate sewer facilities could be designed, and other infrastructure such as stormwater could be considered. Where would the sewer go? Would it be pumped back to the Tumwar facility on Clean Water Way? Should another facility be constructed out in the canyon? What kind of facility should be constructed? When the applicants came forward for annexation, none of those questions staff had been answered. Staff explained to the applicant at some point they would need to be. The time frame that it would take staff to do that on our own would be a lot longer than hiring consultants to help or to subsidize the master planning process of figuring those questions out in the East Truckee River Canyon. Four of the major property owners came together to, after staff had proposed estimated costs for coming up with those plans, four of the property owners came together and by contract paid for a master planning effort to be done. I guess I shouldn't say paid for, provided money for the city to move forward with master planning effort, where the city would hire the consultants and basically run with developing an East Truckee Canyon area plan. The major portion of that, or the first step, was developing a fiscal analysis. The fiscal analysis, as it began to come together, started reflecting that it may be a negative revenue situation for the city of Sparks. We brought the property owners in as those studies came together and informed them of where the fiscal analysis was going based on land uses that they had proposed and we had agreed to. But those land uses were also figured at very high floor area ratios and high, one of them included a hotel, casino, and truck stop. So they were high revenue producing uses. But as I said earlier in the presentation, I just don't think that there's enough developable land in the East Truckee River Canyon that is not constrained by topography to be able, and that's what the fiscal analysis essentially reflects. The fiscal analysis also reflects that even at high floor area ratios for office, which could provide a substantial amount of revenue, the revenue it would, or the amount of office it would take is more than what is currently in the entire city of Sparks and city of Reno combined. So when you start looking at those types of comparisons, as I said, it seems to be too risky to develop out there for something that at the end of the day may generate $100,000 in revenue a year.
Is that good, Doug? Okay. Any other questions for Jim?
Yeah, I do,
Oh, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman. Jim, showing your figures in that, there is more than likely going to be a negative revenue source coming from that land out there. There was another option, and I'm sure that staff talked to the property owner in regards to changing state law to bring in a general improvement district. Could you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. As when the fiscal analysis was for the most part completed and we reviewed it with the property owners, we tried to, in my opinion, we have exhausted all the alternatives that we can think of for potentially developing this land under the city of Sparks jurisdiction. One of the scenarios we proposed to the property owners was they could go forward to Carson City on their own and try to get state legislation changed so that general improvement districts could be allowed under an incorporated city. Currently, they're only allowed in the unincorporated county, and what that allows for is a municipality to recover some of the costs of the operations, whereas a municipality, we can recover the costs of building a fire station, for example, but we cannot recover the costs of staffing the fire stations from the property owners outside of what we gain in property tax and sales tax. So what this would do, if that type of law was changed, you would be able to recover some of your costs for daily operations of a sewer plant or a fire station or a police station. The applicants, or the property owners, did not embrace that proposition, in my opinion. And they have voluntarily submitted for detachment. This is a voluntary detachment request, and I think they'd like to try and move forward under the county regulations. But the county can very well have lower development standards than the city of Sparks, We have certain levels of service for fire protection, response times, distances from incorporated areas, and the county may be able to develop under what the regional planning commissioners have a better, may have a better grasp of the rural development standards as opposed to the urban development standards or the Truckee Meadows service area standards.
Anything else? Would the applicant or the applicant representative like to say anything before we open the public hearing?
Real quickly. For the record, Cynthia Albright, Stantec Consulting on behalf of Stonefield, Inc. I'd just like to add real briefly, staff has obviously done a really good job in the staff report. The recommendation, the conclusions, the paper before you represents an enormous amount of effort on behalf of, staff time, the property owners to actually get to this conclusion. We've been working on this for a long time. We as one of the property owners out there, tried as best we could to come up with every possible idea we could all come up with together to possibly stay in the city of Sparks. We annexed in the city of Sparks despite the fact that staff recommended denial. We went to the city council because we believed that in the end that's where we wanted to be, that's where we needed to be long-term in order to make this project move forward. But in the end, times change, and we promised the city council when we went before them that we would not proceed with any development whatsoever until the East Truckee Canyon Land Use Plan was developed and the fiscal impact analysis was done. And obviously my client was one of those property owners that helped fund that study. So at the end of the day, we don't want to be detaching from the city of Sparks, but we, of all the property owners, are the only ones that have a legitimate project to move forward with at this time. And as the staff report indicates, this particular piece of property and the project that we want to move forward with has the one that's generating the bulk of the revenue, 87% of the revenue. We can't help the fact that we are pretty much a rural development type of a project following under urban standards within the TMSA. And with that, we would really like your support to detach and move forward in Washoe County.
Mr. Lynn?
In light of statements to the city council and the results of the fiscal analysis, is it your professional opinion that detachment is the right thing for your project?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Cynthia? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now open up the public hearing. You have 3 minutes to say anything you'd like on this project. Would anybody like to come down? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the Planning Commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move to forward to the City Council a recommendation of approval of the detachment request associated with PCN 09007 to remove approximately 375 acres from the city limits of the City of Sparks, Nevada, based on the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report.
Second. And we have actually 5 minutes before we vote on this, please.
Sure. We'll take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
I'll call the meeting back to order. Is there anything you need to share with us?
No, you should go.
Okay. We have a first and a second. Any discussion by the Planning Commission? Okay. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to the next item, PCN 09018 Tahoe Reno Commercial Center LLC.
Jim Rundle, Senior Planner, here to present a detachment request from Tahoe Reno Commercial Center for a property that is in the East Truckee River Canyon. I'm going to try to point it out. Right here. The parcel is approximately 30 acres in size and was annexed also in 2009 by the Sparks Planning Commission. The findings for recommending detachment of this property are very similar to what was just discussed. I don't want to be entirely redundant for what the Planning Commission just heard, because the staff, as you have read, the staff reports are very similar. As we talked about in the last item, staff did a master planning effort that was cumulative for the whole East Truckee River Canyon, which included this parcel and included the last parcel that was considered for detachment. One thing I'll choose to put up is a land use map, a draft land use map. This is the land use map that the Sparks Planning Commission reviewed when we had a workshop for the East Truckee River Canyon. What I'd like to point out on this map that is illustrated very well is the green area on the map and the gray area on the map are essentially development constrained areas. The purple area on the map was areas we determined could probably be industrial. However, this purple area here was development constrained regarding access. So when we did our analysis that you see in the fiscal analysis, there was development potential for this purple area here and development potential for the blue, red, and purple areas out here. So you can see in 9,900 acres of actual land, there is not a whole lot of developable area in the East Truckee River Canyon. By developable, we were utilizing the City of Sparks Hillside Ordinance, which the Planning Commission is very familiar with, and we were also using the flood areas that are prone to flooding, which are along the river. Also, we were using what is owned by the Bureau of Land Management, which does have a lot of land out there. Union Pacific Railroad also has land out there that they didn't want to see developed. So at the end of the day, it supported the findings of what could ultimately develop and how much revenue that would produce for the City of Sparks. So staff is supporting detachment of this property from the City of Sparks. We believe that the applicant has done followed the prudent course of action, requesting this voluntary detachment. Of course, they want to seek development under Washoe County. This would go to Regional Planning Commission, acting as the Annexation Commission, and then ultimately to the Sparks City Council for final approval. And that concludes my presentation. Commissioner Barnes, Chairman Barnes, the property owner is here.
Okay. Any questions for Jim? Okay. Would the owner or applicant like to speak?
Quickly for the record, Cynthia Albright, Stantec Consulting. I guess on behalf of Tahoe Reno Commercial, I would just like to say that at this point, this applicant doesn't have any concrete development plans for the property. Right now, they have a long-term lease with Tigert to mine some material out there for the next 20 years. So the property we have a special use permit that we got approved a long time ago, and they signed a 20-year lease with Tigert to continue mining the operation there. So until the market and economic conditions change, at this point, there really isn't a development plan, but we would appreciate your approval of the the application request. Thank you.
Any questions for Cynthia?
Ms. Albright, just the same question that I asked you before, in light of the original application, in light of the statements made to the city council, is it your professional opinion that detachment is appropriate for this project as well?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Volz?
Yeah, just a bit of a conversation to help me. I don't have any objections to this in principle, but I'm still confused, and I sort of asked this question a little bit on Tuesday and was still confused at the end. Assuming this goes through, and the next logical step on that would be for the sphere of influence to go away, so that you could be dealing with Washoe County. What would be different that would not have the same sort of fiscal constraints in terms of police, fire, and infrastructure, public works, at the Washoe County level that would make these projects potentially possible, that wouldn't make them possible in the city of Sparks?
Commissioner Volz, that if development occurs under Washoe County's jurisdiction, like you say, in the scenario that these properties are detached, this area is rolled back from the city of Sparks' sphere of influence, so everyone is dealing with Washoe County. The difference will be levels of service standards that Washoe County has adopted as opposed to what the city of Sparks has adopted. City of Sparks has adopted a policy that all development has to have sewer, whereas Washoe County allows for certain areas in the rural development area to have septic tank. Sparks Fire, or the City Council, has adopted levels of service of, I think, a 5-minute response time, or 6-minute or something like that. I don't remember the exact minutes. Rural development areas in Washoe County don't have the same levels of service that the city has. So they don't necessarily need for the same amount of development that the city would have to even come close to making those, to putting a fire station out. If we put a fire station out there and stay within our concurrency requirements as the regional plan requires, we need a certain level of development to be able to offset the cost of those stations. If you put a use out there such as the aggregate facility, which is not in the city of Sparks or the sphere, it's approximately in this area of the unincorporated county, you don't necessarily have to have a fire station within proximity to that aggregate facility. If you put a data center out there that doesn't have any employees in it, you don't necessarily need to have a fire station within proximity to it to provide emergency medical response or fire response. Regardless of if the Planning Commission remembers back to when we annexed this property, in the staff report, we included a section that says if there is an annexed property out there and a fire starts on that property and moves into the unincorporated county, the city of Sparks is liable for paying for all of the costs of fighting that fire, the airstrike and all of these hand crews and all of the support that comes with it, because it started on the city of Sparks parcel and we didn't have a station there to take care of it. So they can develop under a different level of different standards than the city can. So
Yeah, I'm not. I think I understand that now, but and I'm not advocating this as an answer, but I'm assuming from the way you're saying that it's not possible for a developer to abdicate all of those requirements that are in the city code and simply say, I voluntarily accept less service for fire, police, or whatever. That's not a possibility?
they could. However, there will be people traveling along Interstate 80, and once we annex those parcels, I'm referring to myself, the city of Sparks. The city of Sparks is responsible for providing emergency response to people traveling along Interstate 80, along the parcels that are annexed. So if we put I'm going to put the Stonefield map back up because it's easier to see. If we this parcel is annexed here, the city of Sparks has emergency response emergency response responsibility along Interstate 80 here. There's nothing to say that it's very likely, in fact, that people that are not property owners and have not waived their right to having emergency response will need response along Interstate 80.
Thank you. Any other questions?
And Cynthia, any of the entitlements, this is just kind of a different question, but any of the entitlements that you've already got won't be changed for like the mining because of this detachment? Those entitlements are already in place?
Right, that's true. The only entitlement is the special use permit for the mining operation.
And that's through the county?
And that's through the
Yeah,
county.
okay.
Yeah. Nothing, there's no entitlements on the property at this point.
There was the special use permit that staff worked on, the Planning Commission recommended approval on for the solar power plant, and that, I don't think that's gotten regional approval yet. So I'm not sure what would happen with that, but I think the Planning Commission just recently approved an extension of that special use permit. So that, we would work out with the county that they, if the Planning Commission chooses to detach this, the rollback occurs, and that special use permit's still valid, they would probably have to honor that special use permit.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I forgot about that special use permit.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. We will now open the public hearing for this item. If you have any thoughts or any comments, please come on down, and you've got 3 minutes. Not seeing any movement, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the Planning Commission. Mr. Thorne?
Just really quickly, I wanted to make sure on the record that it was clear that Jim saying that the county would probably honor a special use permit is in no way a guarantee or a for sure answer. That's something that, like Jim said earlier, would have to be worked out with the county, and presumably will be entirely dependent on what the district attorney's office has to say about it.
I would like to add something, though. That was done through cooperative planning, so the county was sent a copy of the application, and they actually approved it through not appealing it to Regional Planning Governing Board. Had it gone forward, they would have been the one working on the building permit. They would have submitted a building permit over to the county. So they should, like Doug says, it's not actually, I guess it's not a foregone conclusion, but they were in the process of approving that special use permit. Whereas a special use permit maybe on Victorian and Pyramid would be different because it's only done by the city of Sparks. Through cooperative planning, they review the special use permit as well, if that helps anything.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Jim Stevens is exactly right. It's just we're not in a position to guarantee it one way or another.
Okay, understood. All right. Do I have a motion?
Prepared for a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
I move to forward to the City Council a recommendation of approval for the detachment request associated with PCN 09018 to remove approximately 30.23 acres, 30.23 acres, from the city limits in the city of Sparks, Nevada, based on the facts supporting these findings set forth in the staff report. So that's
Second.
30.23 acres.
And second from
Second.
Commissioner Lee. Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item, PCN 10020, Red Development, LLC.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. For the record, Tim Thompson, Senior Planner. This is a request for a handbook amendment to the Legends Plan Development Handbook. Staff is asking that you continue that item tonight to your December 16th meeting so to allow us some more time to work with the applicant on revisions to the handbook. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Any questions for Tim? Okay, I'll open the public hearing for this item. And I'll close the public hearing for this item and bring it back to the Planning Commission.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bowles.
I move to continue the request for tentative approval of an amendment to the Legends at Sparks Marina Plan Development Handbook associated with PCN 10020 to the December 16, 2010 Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. This item's continued. And on to general business, PCN 10026, Lennar Communities.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. For the record, Tim Thompson, Senior Planner. This is a tentative map request for a 236-lot, single-family residential subdivision in the Pioneer Meadows Plan Development. Again, staff is requesting that you continue this item to your December 16th meeting to allow us more time to work out an issue with the developer. And, you know, we talked about the pond issue on Tuesday, so you're all aware of the situation there. Appreciate your indulgence on continuing this item. Thank you.
Any questions for Tim? All right. This is not a public hearing item, so does anyone have a motion?
I would love to make a motion.
Yes, ma'am.
I move to continue the request for the tentative subdivision map associated with PCN 10026 to the December 16th, 2010 Planning Commission meeting.
Second?
Okay, we have a first and a second.
Who won that tie?
Mitch
We'll be enlightened in a
or
minute.
Tom? Tom? Oh, Tom has the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that item will also be continued. Item number 11, comments from the commissioners. None? Well, then, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much for your time.